They told us it was just a cleanup, a final sweep in a nowhere zone between borders. Coordinates so classified they didn't even give them to us over comms. They handed them to me on a folded slip of paper and made me eat it after reading. Our objective was simple: confirm a successful airstrike on what command labeled a rogue chemical facility, suspected to be housing WMDs. Total deniability. No locals, no survivors, no proof. We touched down under moonless black, just past 0300 hours, in a 4-man MH6 Little Bird. I led a 6-man ground team, codenamed Scythe 7, tight-knit, efficient, no bullshit. As soon as we dropped into that valley, I knew something was off. The air was too quiet, no wind, no bugs, just dry heat and sand, and this sick metallic tang on the air, like someone had left iron out in the sun for too long. The terrain had taken a beating: charred earth, cratered stone. Ash still floated in the breeze like funeral confetti. But the blast zone didn't look right. It wasn't the pattern you'd expect from a bomb. No outward spray, no radial fractures. The crater just sank, like the earth had been scooped out by something beneath it. "Looks like hell sneezed," Corporal Baines muttered. He was our mouthy one, always had something to say, even in deep shit. I didn't laugh. We made a sweep of the perimeter, thermals on, no movement. But none of our boots were picking up traction. The sand felt soft, too soft, like walking on soaked meat. I knelt and touched it. Still warm. We weren't the first boots here. I glanced at the radiation meter. Nothing. No toxins, no chemical particulates in the air. Just heat. Humidity that didn't belong in this stretch of desert. And that smell again. Copper and rot. "Sarge," came Daniel's voice in my earpiece. "You're gonna want to see this." We regrouped around the crater's edge, and I saw what he meant. At the center of the blast site wasn't just glassed earth, it was open, like a fissure had split in the ground and kept sinking. A jagged hole, 20 feet wide, disappearing into pure black. No reflection, no bottom. Even our tack lights got swallowed after 10 feet. "Could be an old cave system," Morris offered, but his tone didn't believe it. "No seismic record," I replied. "Command said this was solid rock. That's why they dropped the bomb here." We paused, and then the wind started. Except it wasn't wind. It was breathing. Low pulsing drafts pushed from the hole, hot, rhythmic, like air from lungs too massive to belong to anything natural. My men stepped back. Instinct, not orders. "Do you hear that?" Daniels whispered. "What?" "Like voices under it. Like screaming, but backwards." I raised a fist. Silence, and I heard it too. Not a voice exactly, but intonation. Something primal and patterned and wrong. The wind shifted again, this time carrying something with it. A red mist, fine, almost like vaporized blood. It clung to our lenses and optics. Baines wiped his goggles and froze. Jesus Christ. At our feet, the sand was moving. At first, I thought it was wind again, but no, there was direction, flow. The grains slid together like iron filings dragged by a magnet. They spiraled around the crater edge, slow and deliberate, and they were forming shapes, not random. Symbols, letters in languages we didn't recognize. One curled around my boot before dissolving into dust. That's when I called it in. Scythe 7 to command. We have a breach, possibly artificial, unnatural seismic activity. Something's coming up through the soil. But all I got back was static. No reply, no ping, no GPS, just white noise and the sound of something deep in the earth waking up. Riggs, our newest guy, stepped too close to the edge. The sand gave under his weight, and he tumbled forward. "Riggs!" I shouted, diving too late. He dropped into the fissure, but didn't scream. No impact sound, no body, just silence then. The mist pulsed, the sand spiraled faster, and then Riggs's voice came back up through the hole, not screaming, laughing. Riggs came back up at dawn. He wasn't laughing anymore. We found him half buried in the red sand on the western ridge, face down, palms splayed outward like he'd crawled up from hell itself. His boots were gone, so were his gloves. The flesh on his hands and feet looked burned away. Not scorched, but as if something had peeled the memory of skin from his bones. His eyes were open, and he was whispering. Not English, not anything we could understand, but the cadence was unmistakably human, like a priest giving last rites to something long dead, and every word dripped out like it hurt him to say it. "Riggs," I knelt beside him. "Can you hear me?" He blinked, but he wasn't looking at me. His gaze tracked past my shoulder, fixed on the horizon. I followed it. That's when I saw the fissure had grown. It was easily 60 feet wide now, and it wasn't just a hole. Something was building around it. The sand had risen up into jagged, curved shapes, arches, ribs, vertebrae, sculpted like bone, but too big, too deliberate, like a maw opening slowly. And there was a sound, low, vibrating through our boots, not in the air, in the earth. The kind of sound you feel more than hear. A heartbeat coming from below. "Command still isn't responding," Daniel said, eyes glued to his radio. "No uplink, no GPS. It's like the satellites are gone." "We need to evac," Morris muttered. "Now. Leave a beacon, flag the site. This is beyond our op." But I was staring at Riggs, because he'd stopped whispering. He looked up at me with dead gray eyes and mouthed something I didn't want to hear again. "It remembers." We tried to lift him. His body was ice cold, and it took 4 of us to drag him back to camp. He didn't scream, didn't struggle, just watched the fissure behind us, like it was calling him home. Back at camp, Daniels brought out the drone. Lightweight, long-range infrared capable. We sent it down the fissure, descending past the visible edge, infrared camera live on his tablet. The drone descended 10 feet, 20, 40, and then we saw it. Not a cave, not a bunker, a structure made of bone, or something that pretended to be bone, latticed and spiraled like a ribcage around a pit of molten red. Thousands of pillars rising from the walls, except the pillars weren't solid. They were spines, human-sized, humanoid shapes fused together in vertical rows, all facing upward, mouths agape, not screaming but singing, or they had been. You could see the straining tendons in the jaw. the locked skeletal throats. Daniels nearly dropped the tablet. Jesus, they're looking at us. And they were. Every fused head in that godless monument was facing the camera, even though they were part of the wall, even though they were long dead, even though the drone hadn't made a sound. Then something moved. Something massive. Just at the edge of visibility, a shift in shadow. The camera picked up heat, a shape beneath the structure, larger than any natural organism. No movement, but definitely alive. Pull it back, I ordered. Daniels tried, but the drone wasn't responding. The feed started glitching, colors flickered, heat sig spiked, and then the screen went black. In its final frame, we saw the silhouette of a face, not human, something imitating it, elongated, eyeless, grinning wide with teeth like stalactites, a face made of us. That night, Baines lost it. He tried to bury the tablet, said it was listening, that the thing in the ground was feeding off our thoughts, that every time we looked at the fissure, it learned more. I tried to calm him down until he held up his arm and showed us what had grown beneath the skin. Lines, black veins pulsing under the surface, forming a symbol I'd seen earlier in the sand spiral, not drawn, grown. He kept scratching it, kept saying it was itching from the inside. I had Daniels sedate him, but before Baines went under, he mumbled something. Same cadence Riggs used, different words, but the same meaning. It remembers the fire. It remembers the screaming. It remembers us. We doubled perimeter security. Nobody slept. But even through the reinforced night vision lenses and drone audio relays, we started seeing them. Figures, shaped like us, same gear, same gait, walking out of the fissure and into the desert, except they weren't real, not fully. They flickered, like shadows cast by a broken projector, and they smiled when we pointed rifles at them, but none of them attacked. They just watched, and somewhere far beneath us, the heartbeat in the soil grew louder. By the third day, it was clear this wasn't a sight anymore. It was a wound, one we'd torn open with a missile strike, and now it was festering. The fissure had grown to the size of a football field. Red mist constantly poured out of it, thin and oily. It clung to everything, our lenses, our lungs, our skin. The sand within 100 yards had turned black, not burned, not stained, infected. Morris was the next to break. We found him at dawn, just before the morning check-in. Though check-in was a joke now, we hadn't been able to reach command in over 48 hours. Satellite, radio, GPS, all dead. The sky above us looked wrong too. Same constellations, but slightly off, like someone had nudged the stars with their thumb. Morris was standing barefoot in the center of camp, muttering to the black sand. His boots were next to him, so were his socks. His feet bled slowly, and the blood was soaking downward into the earth, vanishing faster than it should. I approached slowly. He didn't look up. "She's dreaming," he whispered. "Who?" I asked. The thing in the ground. She's asleep, but we're loud. We're stomping around like we own this place. He looked at me, and his eyes weren't right. The pupils were thin, vertical slits. She's starting to wake up. I sedated him, just like Baines, but the damage was done. Whatever it was inside him now. Baines started convulsing in the night. We had him tied down inside the med tent, which we'd converted into an isolation zone. But the straps didn't matter. His body didn't move like a human's anymore. Joints flexed backwards. His skin stretched and popped like leather soaking in water. His spine elongated until he arched completely off the cot and screamed. But it wasn't his voice. It was 100, all at once, layered like a choir being dragged across broken glass. And still, through all that pain, he smiled. Daniels puked in his mask. I didn't blame him. When the screaming stopped, Baines collapsed. Silent, eyes wide, tattooed across his chest, burned into the skin like it had been branded from the inside out, was a map. A spiral. No, an anatomical cross-section of something that wasn't human. Long spine, too many ribs, no skull, just a hollow ring of teeth, and underneath, scrawled in English, like a bad joke. You opened the door. Now she's coming home. That was when the land started changing. It began with the ridge lines, where rock formations began to curve, subtly at first. Arches bent in unnatural directions, then they began to lean inward, as if pulled toward the fissure. The sand formed ridges, spirals, lines that looked like crop circles, but three-dimensional, raised up from the desert, like scar tissue. And then came the monoliths. They emerged at sunset, rising from beneath the sand like tombstones. Black stone, smooth, tall as a man. Each one had carvings on it, similar to the spirals we'd seen before. Except now we could read them. We didn't know the language, but we understood the meaning. She saw us. She remembers us. She forgives nothing. Daniels cracked next. He'd been silent since Baines died. But that night, he came to my tent, eyes wild. Sarge, he said, we were never meant to wake it. He unzipped his vest and showed me his chest. Another map, another spiral, but this one moved, not visibly, not like animation, but your eyes couldn't stay focused on it. They kept slipping, like something was writhing under the ink, looking for a way out. Daniels didn't wait for orders. He walked straight to the edge of the fissure. I ran after him, shouting, trying to stop him, but he turned and said something that made my blood go cold. I'm not afraid, because I belong to her now. Then he stepped off the edge and dropped into the red fog. There was no sound, just the ground shivering beneath my feet, once, like a heartbeat. That was last night. Now it's morning. There are dozens of figures at the edge of the crater, all standing still, staring up. Their silhouettes match our dead. Some are moving in loops, like they're stuck in the last few seconds of muscle memory. Others are just watching, and the sand is still moving, still spelling new words. Right now, just outside my tent, it says, "She knows your face." I'm writing this from inside the communications shelter. There's no power. The batteries are dead. The signal's jammed. The temperature's been rising for hours, over 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and still climbing. The air tastes like blood and static, but I'm still writing, because someone has to remember before she finishes what we started. At dawn, the earth opened for the last time. We didn't see it happen, we felt it. A low-frequency pulse, deep, mechanical, ancient, rippled through the valley like the soil itself was inhaling. The sand shifted from tan to red, then black, then something else altogether. Something that wasn't a color, just a wrongness, like staring too long at an eclipse. The fissure cracked open fully, no longer a wound, now a mouth, not metaphorically, not symbolically, a mouth carved by tectonic pressure and sacred geometry, wide enough to swallow cities. Inside, ribs arched upward like cathedral rafters. At the base, a heart, not flesh and muscle, no, a pulsing mass of memory and rage formed from stone and screaming souls. I didn't breathe for a full minute, not because of the terror, because the air refused to move. There was no wind, no oxygen, just pressure, a living, sentient pressure that weighed down on my shoulders like God's fist. Then the chanting started. Not from the thing, from the land itself. The monoliths vibrated, the sand rose in swirling patterns. Symbols burned into the terrain like molten brands, and above us, high in the sky where there should have been clouds, shapes moved, vast silhouettes shifting in the haze, circling, watching, waiting. Morris broke first. He stood, stripped off his vest, and walked toward the fissure like it was calling him by name. He wasn't crying. He wasn't even afraid. He looked relieved. He reached the edge and dropped to his knees, and then he sank, slowly, like the ground was water. No splash, no scream. He just disappeared, pulled into the blood-wet soil without resistance, his body unraveling into dust before the last of his bones slid below the surface. One by one, the others followed. Some walked, some ran. A few fought it, until their legs snapped backward and carried them the rest of the way, bones bending like straw under heat. By nightfall, I was the last. I tried to leave, packed what gear I could, loaded my rifle, marked the stars. But no matter how far I walked, I always came back to the same place. The fissure, the mouth, the memory. It remembers us. Not me, not Scythe 7, but us. Humanity. It remembers the fires, the drills, the bombings, the blood we spilled into the soil across centuries. Our footsteps echo in its flesh. Every war, every burial, every sin committed against the earth. And now it's awake. Not out of malice, but reflex, like a hand recoiling from a hot stove, like a body responding to infection. We were the virus, and this is the immune response. I'm hearing voices now. They're not mine. They belong to others, Soldiers, scientists, maybe even priests, people who tried to study it, stop it, warn us. Their thoughts echo through my skull like a broken radio transmission. And one phrase keeps repeating, memory is a weapon. I didn't understand it at first, but now I think I do. She doesn't attack, she remembers, and that's worse. She digs up every sin we've buried, every nightmare we left in the soil, every life we scorched into ash and called victory, and she shapes herself from it. She isn't a god, she's our shadow, and she's coming home. I hear footsteps outside, but there's no one left. I think she's wearing my face now. If you're still breathing, go ahead and like the video. Subscribe if you dare. There are plenty more nightmares waiting for you. And whatever you do, don't forget to ring the bell. It's the only way you'll hear the warnings in time.